All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a really personal story about one woman's journey through chronic illness. It's a path that starts with a simple pain and spirals into a really complex world of medication and, well, the search for a new kind of hope. So where does this all begin? It starts on one very cold morning, with a feeling that would end up defining pretty much everything. This one sentence, it's the start of a long and really difficult road. So, let's start at the beginning. We're talking about the sudden arrival of this debilitating pain that it changed everything in an instant. Imagine this. A 38-year-old woman wakes up and her reality is just completely different. The simple smell of coffee is suddenly unbearable. Even the sound of a spoon clinking against a cup, it sends these waves of pain through her head. She felt so weak, and her entire world just suddenly shrank. So her husband, he's worried, right? He urges her to go see a doctor. The doctor listens, presses on her shoulders, and immediately notes how hard her muscles are. The diagnosis was, well, it was quick. He said her pain came from stress. It was just the physical result of all her worries. Okay, so now we get to what felt like the first glimmer of hope, a really simple plan that seemed to offer a clear path back to something like normalcy. The doctor offered what was basically a two-part solution. First up, a prescription for these small white pills, and second, a list of calming activities. You know, the kinds of things meant to fight the stress that was supposedly at the root of all this pain. It all seemed so straightforward. And you know what? She was so diligent. Every single morning, she rolled out her mat, she stretched her stiff body, tried to breathe deeply, she took that pill at the exact same time every day. But despite all that effort, the pain just stuck around. Sometimes it was just a soft shadow, but other times it was like a fire inside her head. So that initial hope, yeah, it started to fade pretty fast. And what came next was a much more complicated, much more difficult reality as that simple solution started to spiral. So she went back to the doctor. She explained, look, the pain's still here, and now I can't sleep. And what does she leave with? Not answers. She leaves with more slips of paper for more pills. One for stress, another for nervous feelings, and a third to help her finally get some sleep. And you can see this was no longer just a physical battle. It was taking a huge emotional toll. One evening, her husband just looked at her and he saw a stranger. It felt like the person he knew and loved was just disappearing behind this wall of pain and medication. And at the same exact time, she was consumed by her own guilt, her own fear. I mean, she couldn't even play with her kids anymore. She felt like a shadow in her own house, just watching life happen around her. And this question, am I still a good mother? It just haunted her. You know, on top of everything, the pills brought a whole new set of problems. It was like this cascade of side effects that made just getting through the day even harder. We're talking constant tiredness, her arms and legs feeling heavy and weak, her hands shaking. Even simple things like reading a book or remembering to take the laundry out became impossible. But just when things seemed about as dark as they could get, a totally different kind of help emerged. And this one, it didn't focus on more medication. It focused on human connection and small, manageable actions. And this new approach was a world away from her previous treatment. A nurse suggested talk therapy. A friend from church introduced this idea of small wins. The new plan was all about therapy and writing and just gentle movement. It was really about taking back a little bit of control, one small step at a time. And these small steps, they started to create these little victories, these small wins that began to ripple through her family. Her husband, seeing her try, would bring her a cup of tea, offer his support. And her kids, they sensed a shift. They started to reconnect with her, holding her hand or reading her a book, just these tiny moments of light. Now, this journey, it doesn't have a simple cure or some neat, happy ending. It's really about learning to navigate a new, complex reality where, progress and setbacks just exist side by side. Because even with those moments of progress, the pain would inevitably return. A stressful day, a bad night's sleep, it could send her right back to that box of pills. And she came to this really stark realization. The medication hadn't fixed her. It had just altered who she was. It had become a part of her life. So her life became this constant balancing act between two worlds. On one side, you have the light, those small, hard-won victories, like a walk to the shop or just writing one line in her diary. And on the other side, you have the persistent shadow, the pain returning, and that ever-present box of pills just sitting on the table. And really, that's what her story leaves us with. This incredibly powerful question. It challenges us to think about healing not as a destination, not as a cure, but as a continuous, brave, and deeply human process of finding light, even when you have to live with the shadow.